Hey guys, how's it going? So we're back with another video, and every time I make a video like this, I'm it's insane. It's literally like the siren call to the drunken Chibson sailors of the internet. It's unbelievable. But yeah, we're talking about Chibsons again. And this really came about because of a conversation I saw happening on Facebook in one of my groups. And just seeing all the different ways that people were rationalizing why they bought their Chibson or why it was okay or whatever. And I realized that what's going on with these people? Like, what pops into your head that makes you say, I'm going to actually go through with it from the beginning to the end of finding, sourcing, purchasing, and receiving a Chibson. And then I'm going to rationalize it somehow. And then I'm going to tell people on the internet about how amazing it is. Even though I had to usually replace everything or... Now keep in mind that this is a Chibson. But I'm going to tell you that for a Chibson, it's amazing. Why are you making these qualifications? Like, I don't understand. I can't get inside the head of these people that buy these guitars. I can't. So I sat down and I thought about it really hard. What is it that drives a person to buy a Chibson? Why? And I came up with 4 reasons. We're going to go over those right now. Reason number 1 is the person in question cannot afford a real Gibson. Now, we've all been in a scenario where we can't buy the nice thing we want. Some of us are in that scenario now, and some of us are not, and some of us are, and that's fine. But that doesn't mean that that gives you liberty to go buy something that's illegal. It doesn't mean that it gives you liberty to forego a legitimate, moral, and ethical alternative. For example, like I said a minute ago, and like no one's going to deny this, someone will in the comments, you have to replace all the hardware in a Chibson. So you're in, let's say, $350 for the Chibson. And then you're in, I don't know, $100 for the pickups. So now you're up to $450. $30 for the tuners. So now you're at $480. Then you got to replace the bridge and the tailpiece. Let's call that $30. So now you're at about $510. And I'm sure there's other things. Oh, the pots. That's going to be another, let's call it $25. So after taxes and shipping, you're at least $550 into this guitar, right? For $300, you can go buy an Epiphone Les Paul Standard, the inspired by Gibson version, so like the really nice version, the 50s or 60s. That retails for like $600 or $700. So you can almost buy one new for what you've paid for your Chibson. But no, you can buy it used for about $300. You could buy 2 of those for the cost of one of these. And it's not going to be made with biohazardous materials and backdoor factories by the Chinese Communist Party. I mean, come on, guys. What are you doing? And then furthermore, you could still just buy a used Gibson Les Paul Studio. Those are about $600, $650, if you look, for about the same price. And on the Chibson, on the Epiphone and on the Gibson, you don't have to replace anything. It arrives, you open the box, you play it, and it's good. Well, why? So why are we going this Chibson route? It doesn't make any sense. And even after you upgrade everything on the Chibson, you still have junk wood. Oh, but it's nitro. It probably isn't. Most of the time when it says nitro, it's just poly and then matte poly over the poly. It's just a poly sandwich. So that's not an excuse that you can't afford it. That's not an excuse. Because for what you'd pay for the Chibson after upgrading it all the way, you could have bought something way better that required nothing, that's actually legitimate and not lying about what it is. And let's say that you don't want to make any of those upgrades and you just want to buy it for the $350 and you just get it and you just keep it and that's good enough for you. Well, first of all, you should probably go practice your guitar and learn how to play if you think that that's good enough for you. But you could go buy like a Squier Bullet or a Squier Sonic for like $100 and it's going to be a better guitar than the Chibson. It really is. You go buy a Les Paul Special, Epiphone Les Paul Special for $199 new or probably 100 used, and it'll be better than the Chibson. So, again, the fact that it's too expensive, invalid argument. Let's move on. Number 2 reason why people buy Chibsons. You hate Gibson. So when you buy a Chibson, you're sticking it to the man. In fact, I saw some comments on my last video that said, it being counterfeit is what makes it cool. Okay, let's back up for a second. Think about this objectively. If I hate something and everything that it stands for, and the way they do business, and the way that they make things unobtainable, and the way that, let's say that for the sake of argument, you are correct, and they underpay their workers, they're just as bad as China, they make terrible guitars, their QC is bad, they overcharge, yada yada. Let's say that's all true. If I hate something, why the hell would I want to purchase a product that has the name of the thing that I hate on it? Why? Ask yourself that question right now. Why? Because if it's as good as you say, and you play it for someone, you've just endorsed the name of the thing that you hate. I'm going to pull a reverse Uno card on all of you right now. You ready? Everyone says, Slash played a Chibson though. But Slash, Chibson, it's a counterfeit, it's a fake, First of all, it's not a Chibson. It was made by a very skilled luthier in the United States. So it's not a Chibson. It's a counterfeit, yes. Not a Chibson. The thing I just described to you happened. Gibson was on the verge of bankruptcy, insolvency. They were in a really bad spot in the 80s. Along comes this dude named Slash playing a Gibson on stage. And how many kids and adults wanted to buy a Les Paul now because they saw Slash playing one? So if he was like you and he hated Gibson so much, and so he put the Gibson logo on his guitar to spite Gibson because he hates him, he made Gibson billions of dollars. So that argument of you hating Gibson and buying it to stick it to him actually works against you if you're any good. If you're not any good, then your opinion's invalid because you don't know the difference between a good guitar and a bad guitar anyway. But we'll get to that. That's point number 4. We're only on point number 2 right now. The other thing is your tiny $350 counterfeit firewood that you bought from the CCP, that money was never going to go to Gibson anyway. Let's be honest. You were never going to be able to afford a Gibson. You were never going to buy a Gibson. You're not their target market. I'm sorry, but you're not as important as you think you are. They're not marketing to you. They're marketing to people who can afford them, not you. So you buying a Chibson, that doesn't do anything for them. If you're any good, it'll be the Slash effect. And if you're not any good, then your opinion's invalid on this. Let's go to point number 3. This is probably the most egregious reason to buy a Chibson. And that is, you have an intent to deceive. So, you're poor, you can't afford a real Gibson. So, instead of buying a real guitar, like a legit guitar, like anything else, a Mexican Fender costs about the same price as a Chibson, an Epiphone, an ESP LTD. You can even buy an SE, PRS SE. You can almost buy a EVH Wolfgang for this price, the lower tiered one. But so instead of buying a legit guitar and actually, playing a legitimate and moral and ethical guitar that wasn't made in a sweatshop, you bought an illegal forgery with the intent to fool everyone into thinking that you're more legitimate than you really are. Because you have a Gibson. We all know that guitar player. Oh, well, I have legitimacy because of the guitars that I play and the brands that I have. Look behind me right now before you say, well, you're doing that. No, I'm not. There's an Epiphone right there. There's a West Creek Revenge right there. There's a Dean MLX right there. There's a Kramer Baretta Special. There's an OLP MM1. Now, I don't know. What's that? What is that? Anyway, I have Gibsons. I have 5 or 6 of them. And I have American Fenders. So I'm not being that guy. Okay? I'm not being that guy. But we all know that guy. The only thing worse than being that guy is lying about it. So not only are you using your gear to legitimize yourself, it's fake. Unforgivable. The other reason is that you're a crook and you're trying to scam people. And there's a special place in hell for you if you're doing that. That is That is deplorable. Absolutely deplorable. Whether you're a business or an individual doing that, you should be strung up in the town square is where you should be. And even if, let's just say for the sake of argument, this was all unintentional, and I'll make sure to tell the person who buys this from me someday that it's not real. I'll tell them, I promise. Okay, let's say I believe you. Are they going to tell the person they sell it to that it's not real? Is that person going to tell the next person that it's not real? Is that person going to tell the next person that it's not real? You know the answer is no. That's like if you have mice and you catch the mice in a live trap and then you go release them somewhere. You're just making it somebody else's problem. You should just use snap traps and kill them, get rid of them. No. All you care about is yourself. You're selfish. You don't care about the rest of us. You don't care about the rest of the guitar community. You don't care about the mom and pop shops. I'm really good friends with the owner of one in my town. You don't care about any of them. You only care about yourself and sticking it to the man. And showing people like me, the elitists and the gatekeepers. You're not showing anybody, man. You're just showing your ignorance. Your ass is showing. Pull up your pants. And then that was the most unforgivable reason. Number 4 is the most forgivable reason. Ignorance. You don't know. You didn't know any better. You're owner number 3. And the guy who sold it to you didn't disclose it to you. You didn't know any better. You didn't know. But here's the thing. If that's true, and you're ignorant, and you don't know any better, then you shouldn't be spouting your mouth off about how good Chibsons are, okay? I would be willing to wager that 99% of the people who are on these websites here on YouTube or on Facebook or anywhere that are advocating Chibsons and saying they're so good and they're just as good as a Gibson as long as you change the parts or whatever, everybody else is a gatekeeper, blah, blah, blah. You're probably not a very good guitar player. You probably don't know what good guitar tone sounds like. You probably don't know what a real good guitar feels like. You're not qualified to make that judgment. You don't have skills. You don't have an eye, an ear, or a hand for something that's good. So don't go spouting your mouth off talking about how it's so good, because you saying that feeds the ignorance cycle and the ignorance loop. Now that guy who doesn't know any better saw all these people say that they're so good. But all these people are ignorant. They have no credibility. They're not very good guitar players. Well, it was compared to the Gibson that I played at Guitar Center. Okay, you walked into Guitar Center. You annoyed the salesperson to get the Gibson down for you from the top shelf. You went and plugged it into the Marshall stack. You sat and played Smoke on the Water and Sultan's a Swing and decided that you didn't like the guitar very much. Well, obviously, if you're playing that kind of shit and you pick up a Chibson, it's going to sound the same to you. It's going to feel the same to you. Stop talking. Go learn. Get good. Go practice. Start playing the guitar properly. And then you'll know that you're wrong. It's not an opinion, it's a fact. Okay? I mean, confirmation bias really is the thing that's reigning supreme here. Because most of these people are buying these things, even if they don't like it, they are drinking copium. They're slurping down that copium down their throat. Yummy copium in your tummy, right? So you got to go tell everybody, including me, how good Chibsons are, and how I'm a gatekeeper, and how we're all uninformed, and how we're just sucking on Gibson. Well, Gibson, I don't get any money from Gibson. They get money from me. That's fine. You know why they get my money? Because I like them. I like their guitars. They make good guitars. And by the way, but their QC is terrible. Their guitars are so bad. If you walk into a store and you play a guitar that's bad and you buy it anyway, you are an idiot. That's not on Gibson. That's on you for being stupid. You know what you do in that scenario? You tell the salesperson, hey, this guitar's jank. Can you get me a different one? Find one that's good and buy it. If you bought one that you played in the store that was bad, you're an idiot. If everybody did that and they refused to buy the bad ones, Gibson would start making them better. So that's on you, man. That's on you. So, in conclusion, the only common thread between all of these people and all of these reasons is the fake Gibson logo on the headstock. So you're all, and when I say you all, I mean you Chibson supporters, you are incapable or unwilling to admit that Chibson guitars are objectively terrible. They feel bad. They have bad electronics. And often they look bad. They look real glossy and shiny, or the knobs are in the wrong place, or the logo is hilariously applied, or the logo or the serial on the back is like laser etched into the paint and it looks all jank and white. Come on, guys. All you care about is that it says Gibson on it. And that's really, really sad. That says a lot more about you than it does about the rest of us. I've gigged Squires. I've gigged Epiphones. I gigged that West Creek back there a few times. I don't have any shame because I know that I'm good enough to make any of those guitars sound good. If it feels good in my hands and it's legit and it's a moral and ethical product and legal product to sell, then I'm all about it. Okay? If you care that much about the brand, you need to go home, get good, and save your money and buy a real guitar. Don't buy one of these counterfeit bullshit guitars. And everything else notwithstanding, okay? Let's say everything I said today is wrong. There are facts that remain. The facts are that Gibsons are good guitars, generally speaking. And Chibsons, they're unethical, they're illegal, they're made of biohazardous materials that aren't checked by anybody. They're often endorsed by the CCP and communism, because the most anti-capitalist thing you can do is rip off a heritage brand of the United States capitalist system and make fakes of it. They're often made with slave labor in backdoor factories. They're made in the same factories as Epiphone. No, they're not. They're not. And the thing is, Epiphone, while the working conditions in a lot of factories in China are not good, even for legitimate brands, there are still some standards. There are still some audits that happen. There are watchdog groups that check these places out. They're going to check the factories that they're making iPhones in, right? They're going to check the factories that are making Epiphones. Who's going to go check the Chibson factory? Nobody. Who's going to be held accountable if the Chibson factory is making their people live in the factory? Nobody. So that argument is also invalid. So don't use it. These Chibsons are immoral, they're counterfeit, they're fake, they're forgeries. They are an embarrassment. You should be humiliated if you support these. You really should be. If you agree with me, let me know in the comments. Because everyone else, they're going to let me know. They always do. Like I said, these videos are a siren call to the Chibson sailors of the guitar seas. So, to you Chibson sailors of the guitar seas, I have a challenge for you. In the comments, give me a legitimate reason to buy a Chibson. Legitimate. Something that's moral, doesn't break moral or ethical standards or values. Something that's objectively true. I challenge you. You won't be able to do it. There will not be a legitimate argument. There'll be plenty of arguments in there. I guarantee you they'll all be illegitimate. Okay? Unless the scenario is like, if you're told you must buy a Chibson or your house is going to burn down and your family's going to get locked inside it. Okay? I guess that's an ethical and moral problem that has an easy answer. But really, if that's what it takes to make it moral to buy one, then I think I'm definitely on the right side of this, right? And you're definitely on the wrong side of this. So, in conclusion, go buy an Epiphone. If you support Chibson by now, you should be absolutely, totally humiliated and ashamed of yourself. And if I made you mad, if I hurt your feelings, if I insulted your intelligence, if I made you feel bad about yourself, if I made you feel bad about your guitar playing or your music or whatever, good.